It's Ash from Super Videos, back for another video for Season 10 of The Walking Dead. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at a brand new trailer that they released for Season 10 of The Walking Dead, the extended episodes of Season 10 episode 17, all the way to Season 10 episode 22. Now, they did release another shorter teaser a few months back, but now they released an actual extended trailer for these bonus episodes, so that's awesome. There's actually a lot of great stuff in this trailer that I can't wait to talk about. Some very intriguing stuff that got me super hyped and excited for these episodes. So stay tuned, we'll be right back to break it all down. Alright, as always, before we get into this, if you're not a subscriber, consider subscribing to join our community. Make sure to share and smash the like button and press the bell to be notified when we upload on the channel. So with that out of the way, let's dive right into this. So this trailer starts with this shot of Eugene, Yumiko, Princess, and Ezekiel from the scene when they were surrounded by the Commonwealth soldiers. Then we get this shot, so obviously it's a continuation of that scene. We have Commonwealth soldiers surrounding them. In the voiceover, one of the people affiliated with Commonwealth, it could be one of their soldiers, it could be someone higher up, like Lance from the comics, but we don't know that for sure. But it's pretty much a dialogue from this person asking the group about who they are. So he says, let's start with your name. And then we have this shot of one of the Commonwealth soldiers grabbing Princess here. They're being arrested at this point. And then we have this shot of other Commonwealth soldiers around the area. And then in the voiceover, the guy asks, where are you from? And then we have this shot again of Commonwealth soldiers. One of them actually punches Yumiko in the face, which is pretty interesting. In the voiceover, the guy asks, where were you when the fall happened? The fall obviously referring to fall of society, so he's just interested to know what they've been doing all this time. And then we have this shot of Daryl walking towards this cabin. Now we have talked about this cabin before. Obviously this is going to be in season 10 episode 18, which is called Find Me. And this episode is gonna revolve around Carol and Daryl, and it's most likely going to have some flashbacks from the time when Rick first disappeared. But we do know, based on the synopsis of this particular episode, Daryl finds a cabin. So that's most likely where this particular shot is coming from, and there is more shots of what Daryl is going to encounter once he gets into the cabin, which we'll talk about. And then we have this shot, which we've seen before. Daryl takes out one of his bows from one of the walkers' heads. So we have Daryl right here, and then we have this walker, and then the camera pans around and we have Aaron and Father Gabriel being surrounded by all of these walkers. Now, there could be some whispers amongst these walkers. Like I've said before, I do think that we will see some whispers roaming around. Even though they don't have an army, there is still some of them out there. So I'm assuming that they're probably within this walker herd that Father Gabriel and Aaron are going to encounter. Now, this is obviously connected to that image that they released from these bonus episodes. I'll put it up on the screen as well so you can see. And then in the voiceover, we have a dialogue from Carol. She starts by saying, we both know this world. So obviously she's referring to this new world that they're living in, the apocalyptic world. And then we have this shot of King Ezekiel. This is probably also connected to the scenes that we saw earlier, where we have the Commonwealth soldiers surrounding them. So this could be when they are arrested and put into the train carts. And then we have this shot of a walker, and then Carol continues on to say the dead. So this new world, the dead, it's part of the same dialogue. And then we have this shot of Aaron walking around this building, and then there's walker hands coming out of the doorway. And then we have this shot, which I thought was interesting. I think that's Father Gabriel, and then he's looking around. It seems like there was some survivors there at some point, but they died. But they do have the message, save us. So that's interesting. Now, I'm not sure whether this is connected to the CRM, because the CRM have helicopters and they're the only ones who would kind of be able to see this message. Unless this is from before, and this is when survivors wanted to get the military to find them or something along those lines. That's more likely than the CRM being connected to this. But I think that's Father Gabriel on the roof. So he's the one that comes across this place. But then in the voiceover, we have Carol continuing on with her dialogue. She says it's gonna catch up to us eventually. So this new world, this apocalyptic world, the dead, they're gonna catch up to us. We're gonna become one of them sooner or later. That's what I think she's trying to get at. And then we have this shot of Carol. She's inside some sort of a building, most likely scavenging. This is probably from one of those episodes that's revolved around Carol and Daryl and them scavenging around. And then we have this shot of Daryl and Carol on Daryl's motorbike, so it's a cool shot of them. And then we have this shot of someone walking in the middle of the woods, and he has 2 blades. And then we have this shot of the new character who came with Maggie, Mystery Man in the Iron Mask. So I'm assuming that what we just saw with the person carrying the blades is the same guy. But in the voiceover, we have a dialogue this time from Father Gabriel. He says evil people aren't the exception. He will kind of finish his sentence and make his point. And then we have this shot of a new character right here pointing a shotgun at Daryl. Obviously, this is connected to that scene that we saw earlier where Daryl was walking towards the cabin. So this girl right here is the person that Daryl is gonna find once he gets into the cabin. And then we have the continuation of that scene here. Daryl right here with a shotgun pointed at his face. So that's pretty interesting, and I've talked about this before, but I'm leaning towards this being a flashback and not from the current timeline. This is most likely going to take place during the time when Rick first disappeared. And then we have this shot of Aaron looking at a walker inside a car. And then in the voiceover, Father Gabriel says to the rule. So evil people aren't the exception to the rule, they are the rule. So they're the ones running things. That's pretty much what he's trying to get at. And then we have this pretty interesting shot of someone with a plastic bag or something on his head, and there's someone coming towards him. Now what's very interesting is that this guy right here is a new character that's going to be introduced in the last bonus episode, season 10 episode 22, which is called Here's Negan. So either he is from one of Negan's flashbacks, or he's someone that Negan comes across in the current timeline, or something along those lines. Now personally, I think this is a flashback, and I think that this guy right here is probably one of the members of the Saviors before Negan joined them. He could have even been the leader of the Saviors before Negan got there. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's just the vibe I'm getting from this. But this is very interesting. Now we will see Negan himself in this exact area. That particular scene proves my point as well, because it's a younger Negan, but we'll get to that. And then we have this shot of Father Gabriel. He finishes the dialogue and says they are the rule. So evil people aren't the exception to the rule, they are the rule. I think I'm beating a dead horse at this point, but he's pretty much saying that evil people ruled the world. And then we have this shot of Daryl fighting someone. Now, it looks like it could be a whisper, but I could be wrong about that. But this shot of Daryl grabbing this person, I'm assuming that it's not a walker. It doesn't look like a walker. I think it's a person, and I'm leaning towards it being a whisper. In the voiceover, we have Robert Patrick's character screaming, counting down 3, 2, and then when he says 2, we have an explosion going off, and then Maggie covering her ears, which is very interesting. Now, this could connect to the picture that we saw of Maggie, the one where the guy in the camouflage was behind her, and maybe this shot is that particular character in camouflage walking onto a mine or something. I could be wrong, but maybe it's connected. But this is probably from that particular moment. And then we have Robert Patrick's character saying 1. And he's screaming at the top of his lungs, which is very interesting. Now, he looks pretty badass here, not gonna lie, but I'm very interested to see what type of a character he's gonna play and what he's gonna do. Obviously, he's gonna be in the episode that revolves around Aaron and Gabriel's scavenging. They're the ones that are gonna encounter him, but it's gonna be interesting to see what's gonna happen there. Speaking of Aaron, we have this shot of Aaron holding a gun to his own head and screaming. So that's interesting. Now, what I think we're seeing here is a situation where Robert Patrick's character is threatening to do something. maybe kill Gabriel, maybe something like that. Unless Aaron shoots himself in the head. I could be wrong, but that's the vibe I'm getting. I could be totally off, but that's one of my bold predictions about this particular episode. And then we have this shot of Princess with some Commonwealth soldiers beside her, looking at Ezekiel, Yumiko, and Eugene with a hood on their head, with other Commonwealth soldiers around them. And then we have this shot of none other than Negan, that's actually Negan on the left, fighting off a walker. And then this walker gets shot in the head by none other than Lucille. So that's pretty awesome. We have this pretty awesome shot of Lucille right after she shot the walker in the head. Now, what this definitely proves to us, and it's something that was actually revealed to us when we got the table read for this episode, unlike the Here's Negan comic storyline, Lucille is gonna live for longer in the TV show version. So she's gonna have a different story in the TV version, which is interesting. And that obviously means that the Here's Negan story, when it comes to Negan and finding the saviors and all of that, is probably going to be remixed to some extent as well. Now, I think that they were doing like some sort of a drill or something like that. And then we have this shot of Carol. I think this is from the same scene that we saw earlier. And then in the voiceover, Daryl says, "You can come home." He's actually talking to Maggie. Then we have this shot of Daryl screaming. Not sure what this is about, but this is very, very interesting. And then we have this shot of Maggie. I think this is right after the explosion that we talked about. But in the voiceover, Maggie, I think, is talking to Daryl. She's telling Daryl about something that Herschel Jr. asked her. And I think that it's extremely interesting and deep. She says he asked how his daddy died, referring to Herschel Jr. asking Maggie how his father, Glenn, died. And then we have this shot of Herschel Jr. right there. And I think it's Maggie by his side. And then we have a flashback of Negan holding Lucille. And I think this is when he first builds Lucille. This is kind of like the scene that we saw at the beginning of Here's Negan, with Negan putting barbed wires around his baseball bat. So I think that's where it's coming from. But in the voiceover, Maggie says, "I told him that a bad man killed him." Batman, Boogeyman, Negan. I don't need to explain that to you. And then we have this shot of Maggie with tears in her eyes. And I think that's Daryl next to her. And then she says, and he wanted to know if that man got what he deserved. So Herschel Jr. wants to know whether the man that killed his father got what he deserved. So that's extremely deep. But obviously the shot itself is a shot of none other than Negan walking out of a burning building. Now the reason I say this is Negan is because of this shot right here. But I could be wrong. Remember that other shot that I talked about earlier with the guy walking up to a person with a hood on his head? That was in the same exact area. So that's interesting. And we have none other than Negan pointing a gun at someone. Now, this is a younger Negan, so I'm assuming that this is a flashback. So this is extremely interesting. And this kind of proves my point earlier that that guy that we saw was probably in one of Negan's flashbacks. And then we have this shot of Daryl. Nothing too much to talk about here. And then this shot of Maggie with the mystery character in the iron mask behind her and other people that are with her. And then we have this shot of Daryl looking at Maggie, and that's where the trailer ends. But that's not it. We have an additional scene after it. We have this shot of Negan, an older Negan, a current time Negan, looking back at something. And then in the voiceover, we have Negan himself saying, "Little pig, little pig." This shot of Negan with his red scarf, with Lucille and the leather jacket, sitting on a chair and smiling at the other Negan. So this is obviously hallucination. And then he says, "Let me in. Little pig, let me in." We all know where that's from, so I don't need to tell you, but this connects to what was in the table read, where we had Negan looking back, seeing his leather jacket and thinking about his past. So unlike what we originally thought, which was that he's just gonna see his leather jacket, it looks like he's actually gonna hallucinate and see himself. So that's interesting. And that's pretty much it. That's the end of the trailer. But with all of that said, let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section below. If you're not a subscriber, consider subscribing if you enjoyed the content. Smash the like button and share, and press the bell to be notified when we upload. That's it for this video. See you next time for another super video.